we're going to talk about Princeton. We're going to talk about the presidential campaign. We're going to talk about your jump shot and your poor ass.
That'll be a short conversation. We're not going to get very much.
He's off the sky. He's about to jump. Oh! He's going to rock. This is Bill Bradley, and I'm glad to have you all be with me today. I'm going to have the chance to talk to a person I consider kind of my son, Matt Henshon, who was my shoulder man in the presidential campaign, and you'll learn what a shoulder man is. He played basketball at Princeton. You'll learn a little bit about those years.
Senator Bradley and I have known each other for more than 30 years now. I went to Princeton, played basketball there. Afterwards, became a lawyer, and then ended up coming back and working for the presidential campaign in '99 and 2000. And we connected on the road every day when I was making sure he tried to stay on schedule as best we could. We have a long history.
So, hey, Matt, how you doing, man?
High energy, high energy.
High energy. So we're going to talk about Princeton. We're going to talk about the presidential campaign. We're going to talk about your jump shot and your poor ass.
That'll be a short conversation. We're not going to get very much. So, came down, we had a chance to write a story recently because Princeton named you the greatest athlete in their history, which was not surprised, but gave me an opportunity to connect up with you again and talk about how we got here and how you got to Princeton, which I actually was most intrigued by. So take it from there. How did you get to Princeton?
How did I get to Princeton? Yeah. Well, I had 75 basketball scholarship offers. I thought I wanted to play basketball at the highest level in college, and Princeton was not known for high-level basketball. And so I signed an athletic scholarship to go to Duke. It would have been Art Heyman, Jeff Mullins, me, Jay Buckley. Then what happened was my father, unbeknownst to me, didn't like the idea that I signed an athletic scholarship to go to Duke. So he said to me, you ought to take a trip to Europe. Now, my father never went to high school, never graduated, and never been out of the country. And so I went on a trip, the Cook College tour, 13 women and me. 6 weeks touring through 8 different countries in Europe. And over the course of this time, of course, I was obsessed with playing basketball. I would play, I took my basketball with me. I'd dribble on the Queen Elizabeth. I'd find pickup games at a Y in London, at some playground in Milan or Florence. And, but the women could never understand, why did I decide to go to Duke as opposed to going to Princeton or Yale? I came back from the trip. I broke my foot playing baseball. And when you break your foot, you're injured, you always think about the world without the sport. So where would I go to college if I couldn't play basketball? The answer was clear, I'd go to Princeton. So that Friday night, I came home from a date, woke my parents up, said, look, I'd like to go to Princeton. I changed my mind. I never really thought the decision. In fact, I didn't run into the Princeton basketball coach until 2 days after I was on the campus. That couldn't happen today.
Eddie Donovan, freshman year of basketball, how did that go? Tell me, he was your coach, right?
Yeah, Eddie Donovan was the coach. He was the baseball coach and the freshman basketball coach. And it was fine. We ran a 5-man weave, which of course you don't do in the modern game. But it did teach me how to play backdoor, how to go backdoor. Because the option was always you come over to get the ball or you go backdoor. So it was actually very helpful.
And then VBK shows up the next year.
Yeah, he actually shows up my freshman year in the spring.
Oh, really?
He is introduced to the team.
Yep.
Because what happened was I came to the practice one day. I came down, I stayed after and played as I usually do, and came down and found the Princeton coach, Kappa Kapan, dead in the showers. So Princeton needed another coach, and they got Radikoff.
Did you know him before?
I had no idea who he was. He walked into Makosh 10 and met the team, and he was gruff and bruff as usual, and I thought, this is going to be interesting. But it proved to be a good marriage of an odd couple, he and I. I mean, You know, I was the evangelical worker and he was the free spirit.
Right.
And yet we had the same ideas about basketball, the same way to play the game. And for me, it was a joy to have him as a coach because we meshed so much on knowing the fundamentals and in freelancing.
No set plays, right? Is that right?
No set plays. We never had a set play. You always had to know where you were on the court, where you were in relation to other people. He'd blow the whistle and say, look, you're over here, you should be over there. That was the whole practice. We'd scrimmage the whole practice.
Really?
No drills.
Really? What other memories you have about that freshman year, first year?
Oh, well, I have a memory that I almost flunked out.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty vivid memory. You know, I played
What happened? So tell us about
I played
that.
basketball. We got the midterms of my second term, and I had like 4 Fs, 3 Fs, and 2 Ds. And so I dropped out of baseball. I was playing baseball, dropped out, and spent literally, 13 hours a day in the library on the top floor in some study room, and ultimately pulled through. But it was not certain in any way whatsoever.
Got it.
What about you? You played at Princeton. You had another coach, right? You had
Coach Carrill, yeah.
Coach
So
Carrill,
so he came in right after BBK.
Carrill played for Van Bredikov at Lafayette, right?
Right.
Yeah, and he would bring him in occasionally, and he was short and gruff, and as he always is.
Correct.
But he was a great coach.
Yes, he was a very good coach. He was obviously became a Hall of Famer as well. I think he was more structured than Van Bredikov was. We had plays, for sure. He also used the clock and did all the backdoors the same way. But the innovation, especially the three-point line, was sort of now in today's game you see everywhere. And that's sort of what he was an early adopter on, in my view.
Mm-hmm. Let's flash forward a little bit. I mean, Princeton, this honor, the deeply personal honor for me, and I'm grateful. And most of all, I'm very pleased they asked you to write the article about me. And what's interesting is why does it mean so much to me was because you were my shoulder man in the presidential campaign in 2000. So from your perspective, what is a shoulder man and how does a shoulder man operate? I'll give you my perspective.
So I'm also a lawyer, and so I've trained in the law beforehand. So I think the job is to sort of like be the second chair at a trial and think about what is going on and what is going to happen next. And the job is to figure out where you're going, whether it's physically or mentally, or what you're going to need next, and figure out either what document you need or who you're going to talk to or why you're doing that. And so the whole day is spent trying to think an hour ahead of where you are. And I'm sort of paying attention. I'm in the back room listening to whatever healthcare speech. Yeah, healthcare speech,
so,
whatever. Yes.
People cheering.
Yes.
Are falling asleep.
Such as the case may be. But you're also trying to think about, we have this window for 10 minutes. I get a message, Phil Jackson wants to talk to you. Okay, we have another 10 minutes, so we're going to do that there, and we're going to figure, whatever else was supposed to happen there, now we're going to move that to somewhere else. And so it's trying to anticipate the rest of the day, is sort of what it is.
So you're the maestro of the day, essentially.
Yeah, you're not scheduling it.
You make it work with the schedule.
Right, schedule is already done, right, back home.
But it's in the context of the minutes that are available in the day. Right. What do you stuff in there?
And whatever's going wrong, because you're talking too long to some, volunteer, and we need to get you in the car. We had a signal of time to move.
This signal?
Yeah, right. That's time to move.
Should we reveal it to the public at large?
It is. When you pull in the ear, it's time to go.
Means get me the hell out of here.
And then as we escalate, then it's finally tap on the shoulder, and then it's time we grab your elbow. We just, okay, we have that flight we have to make. So, but you have to, because otherwise the day gets away from you. And then one thing I learned very quickly from you is you did not like being late. And
you know where I got that? Because when you were late with the Knicks, you were fined.
Is that right?
Yeah, $50, I think, a minute.
Really?
Yeah.
So $50 is $50 back then.
You made sure you got
right
there 10 minutes early.
Right.
So I didn't like to be late, that's true. And I didn't even find you when I ended up being late. But I think people don't understand the bond that exists between, we're together 18 hours a day
right.
for, a year?
More than that, yeah, like a
year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half.
Yeah, and every day,
So you kind of know my habits.
Yep. Know when you're not happy. I know when we need...
You think I was not happy sometimes?
I'm trying to help.
But no, but that's one of the points. The body man always tells you the truth, most of the time.
Yeah.
In other words, if you stink up an event, he doesn't say, oh, that's the greatest thing, because you lose your credibility. You're just quiet. When he's quiet, I know this was bad.
We had some bad events along the way.
Like what?
We had an event in Denver at a senior center where we had, I think, 1 or 2 attendees.
1 or 2 attendees.
Yeah, and I think they're both in wheelchairs. They might have got left there by accident.
And was I happy? Did I go into my
You were
big
not happy.
speech on
Yes.
Social Security and Medicare? I mean, body man is somebody that knows you almost better than you know yourself, right, in terms of anticipating needs and so forth. And above all, though, you have a sense of humor. I have a sense of humor. And without the sense of humor, it's tough. But with the sense of humor, you know, if you're late somewhere, I steam off and it comes out my ears, and you open the window and the steam goes out and it's over.
Right. So I used to be, I've actually slipped now. I used to be very good with names and faces. I had to be there because you'd have, especially in like Iowa, people would show up.
What's the guy's name? What's his name? What's his job?
Well, you'd have people.
Damn it, what's his job? You know.
Well, you'd have people show up. So people who had done a fundraiser for us, you know, in California 2 weeks before, they have a plane. They decided they're going to stop in Des Moines to see how the event's going. And Senator Bradley, you remember Joe Smith. We did the event at the House 2 days ago, or 2 weeks ago rather, and blah blah blah. And so you have to, because they're not on the schedule. No one knows they're going to show up, and so you got to be aware of that too. So that's the hardest part of the job, trying to figure out people out of context. It's easy when you have the list. You can go through, okay, that's Joe Smith, that's his wife Jane, etc. When somebody shows up out of nowhere, we need to know who they are. That's hard.
I think what made Matt good at what he did was we really had a very strong personal relationship and trust level. And he was always conscientious. He had to be ahead of me. He had to know what was happening and had to be ready. So he has to get to know you as a human being. And once he gets to know you, then he does with the scheduler. See, he's got to juggle. I only have to do the event, right? I only have to show up. There are the people. I give my speech. We have questions and answers, and we move on. He's got to deal with the scheduler, the press, me, and whatever the event is going to bring that is unknown.
Yeah, there's some of that, but I was actually thinking of when we went to the Iowa State Fair, and at the last minute you were doing a call or something, and you wanted pork chops, and so we had to run like from one end of the fair to the other to get a big basket, I don't know what you call it, like a cooler full of pork chops to put on the plane back to you.
Anybody never tasted anything better than Iowa pork chops.
It was a good pork chop. I agree.
State Fair.
But there's a contradiction. You wanted to stay on schedule, but you wanted your pork chops. There was one or the other.
Hey, that's your job to get those two things to come together.
I think we did make the plan. So think about, like, I know you life on the run and so forth, but how did that compare to life on the run in the NBA versus life on the run in politics and presidential?
It was very similar. When you're playing professional basketball, you have a schedule, you know where you're going, you know what your routine is the day of. When you're in a political campaign, there's always uncertainty. There are always things that pop into the picture. You know what the schedule is, but you have to be able to respond to changes in the schedule and personalities of people, for example. And sometimes things don't go the way they should. You think basketball prepared you to be a body man?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so Kirill, I played for Coach Kirill. I did not have a lot of margin for error. So for instance, by the time my senior year or whatever, if I missed a shot, I would come out. He made it very clear. So it's easy to play free and easy.
If you missed one shot.
Yeah, I'd come out. So it didn't take a while. It's not like I'm the Pavlov's odds. It didn't take very often to figure that out. So I took layups and open threes. That's all I did. I shot a high percentage all senior year. But it was very clear that if I took a bad shot, like even at the end of the shot clock, you know, you're running around and somebody's got to throw it up. He would not, even then, he would like, a bad shot by somebody else is better than a good shot by you. So he'd take me out. So it's sort of, you can't make mistakes. It's a point of view, is I think where I'm going here. And so that's, the connection, I guess, is there. The way I would keep notes, I had like a little reporter's notebook that I'd be able to stick into my jacket. Yeah, my pocket. And so when something happened, like somebody asked a question that you didn't know the answer to at an event, or somebody offered to do something, be a volunteer or something, I just take a note, and then at the end of the day, I would go out and try to summarize it all and try to assign, to, if it was a local thing in Iowa, the Iowa State, here's a volunteer, here's a question we got to find about Medicare or whatever, or here's whatever the follow-up was, that was the goal, and then try to check them off.
Did you realize how important your job was to the functioning of the whole thing? Because it's me and you.
Right.
And you got to translate me and what happened in the course of a day, good and bad, to everybody else in the campaign, who then make decisions based on the information you give them.
Yeah, so one thing I started doing, so we do an event in Iowa, volunteers report back to New Jersey, oh, there were 280 people there or more, whatever. And I was like, well, actually, no, I'm going to count them all. There were 120 people here, like exactly, 122, exactly. And so I became not so popular about that, but it was like, that's the actual number we had in the room, not 280 or several hundred or whatever they'd say. That was the goal, was to try and translate it back. One of the other things body guys that do is make you sit in the room and dial for dollars, which you did not like to do. And so there would be... I
didn't mind fundraising, but dialing for dollars,
yeah, fair. Fundraising, yes, fine. And so, especially in the first part of the campaign, it wasn't always as organized as it might be. And so we'd get a name and there'd be a call sheet. They'd give me a stack of call sheets, so we'd have an hour in between events or something in a Des Moines hotel room or whatever. And so there'd be 15 calls that we're going to make right in a row. And a lot of times they're supposed to be prepped. Somebody's supposed to call ahead. Senator Bradley's going to call from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't, especially in the beginning, it didn't always work. And so sometimes you'd call and the admin or secretary pick up the phone and, is Mr. Smith there? And then clearly no one had called, no one had prepped it, and they'd respond. And I hear your side of the voice. And it's Bill Bradley. What is this regarding? Running for president. And there'd be a longer pause. Of the United States. And then you'd pause, you'd say, I bet you haven't had that call yet this morning.
And sometimes they got me through.
Yes, sometimes. Not always, but once in a while.
Debate prep.
Yeah, so that photo is from up near Dartmouth. The debate was in Dartmouth. I forget where we prepped for it. It's like a high school stage or something we had rented out. And there was a play that was going on. We just wanted sort of a stage and audience, or at least people could sit down. And so I think there's a break there. You're going through notes, is what it looks like to me.
I'm seated in the set.
We're in a room for, 3 or 4 hours, and we're trying to duplicate everything that's going to happen. So you do the if you have a minute or 2 minutes, whatever it is, to answer a question, you're trying to duplicate that. If the follow-up happens, everything, you want to make it as close to the real event as you can. And that's what that is about. So I actually, most of the time, I was a moderator or pretended to be the moderator. I wouldn't ask the questions, but it would come from some of the other, Anita Dunn would be in the room.
Staff members.
Dick Leone, maybe.
Yeah.
Rick Stengel.
Yeah.
Eric Hauser. And so, you go in a sequence, and they'd have questions that they had thought about that to how to answer. And then sometimes we'd stop and talk about, this answer worked, that answer didn't. And sometimes we'd just keep going, and then we'd stop after 15 minutes and break it down. But the idea is we're trying to duplicate everything that happens. And then every once in a while I threw a question in. So actually on that day, I do remember I asked a question you got mad at. I said, would you rather be right or would you rather be president? And you didn't like that very much, so.
Well, I hated debate problem. No. The key is 1 or 2 stories that you want to tell in the course of the debate. Find a way to get the stories in. 1 or 2 quotes to get the quotes in. A couple of statistics on various subjects, and then be spontaneous, which is hard to put all together, right? And it's always the spontaneous moment that people remember. Right. They don't remember the statistics. They don't remember, sometimes they remember the stories, but that's it.
Right.
And I always felt stories were the way to communicate. Because I read Robert Cole's book, the Role of Stories, and it made a profound impression upon me. And after that, I realized an anecdote isn't a silly anecdote. An anecdote is often the only thing people remember. And I found over time, people will come up to you and say, I remember that speech you gave back in such and such. And you say, oh yeah, the one on tax reform? They said, yeah. Well, remember they don't remember anything about an argument. They only remember a story I would tell.
Right.
And I think that experience is actually one of the reasons I got interested in American Voices and doing a radio show where I listened to Americans tell stories because I realized how powerful stories are if we can hear them. And the best politician always has stories that he can tell or she can tell. The other thing you always remember is you remember who the people were who were with you.
Yes.
And particularly in this case, me, I remember the politicians that were stepped forward to be with me as opposed to a sitting vice president, right? And the three that were really important were Pat Moynihan, who was my compatriot from across the river in New York, Bob Kerrey, who was a senator from Nebraska, and Paul Wellstone, who was the senator from Minnesota. I would always campaign mostly with Wellstone, but also with Kerry and some with Moynihan.
Yeah.
But in terms of being in the Midwest, it was Kerry and Wellstone. And we always had this moment where Wellstone, the deal was that the senator who was introducing you would speak first.
Right.
Paul Wellstone is a great orator. I have my limitations as an orator, but Paul is an orator. So he'd go, yeah, and here is Bill Bradley. Yeah, oh, hello, it's so fun to be here. Always this giant letdown.
Yes, yes.
Did you ever talk to Paul about that?
We tried to rein him in, but it didn't work.
But you never forget those people. I mean, to this day, Pat, of course, has passed away, and Paul has too. And Bob is still a very close friend of mine. And the bond was that moment because, and I must say, another politician in that period that showed me personally something was Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she was a congressman. I had campaigned for her before. She wanted to be with me, but she didn't want to challenge Gore per se. And so what she did, she made me feel, by her not endorsing Gore, it was a wonderful thing for me. And she did it with such skill that it was really impressive. And later when she became speaker, I thought that was there all along. She, being the daughter of a Baltimore politician,
right,
learned early on how to do the craft. And it is a craft because she was with me, but not the same as being with me.
Publicly, yes.
But she made me feel like she was.
This is in the very end of the campaign.
This is Seattle, Washington, where as a player, had my favorite hotel in America, the Washington Plaza Hotel. And every time I was in Seattle with the Knicks, I would go down to the Pike Street Market, which was preserved by the city fathers. It's an old-fashioned market, outdoors, and I would always go down there and have a little something to eat. And they have a particular place there where there's a tradition where it's a big fish market, and they take a fish and they throw it, and you got to try to catch the fish. Right. Over to you.
So this is towards the end of the campaign. We have not had a good result in Iowa. We've not had a good result in New Hampshire, and then we go out to Washington State to try and right the ship, so to speak. But there's a feeling that this is not a good spot, and you wanted to go do the fish catching thing, which they often throw to each other. They'll throw it around and they'll throw the fish from one worker to another, and they all know what they're doing. And so now you decided you wanted to.
This is a good story. This is a good story because it speaks. Go ahead. Sorry.
So you wanted to catch the fish, and my compadre Eric Hauser, who was the press secretary, and I, the campaign's in a little bit of disarray. We're getting bad stories in the press. It's not a great situation right now. What could go wrong other than you dropping the fish, and that becomes a symbol of everything. Bradley's campaign slipped out of his grasp, or falls to the ground, or whatever you want to say. So we both are. You wanted to do it. Obviously, the candidate gets to decide, but we're also, the two of us are on the side of the room just closing our eyes. Please don't drop it. Please don't drop it. Please don't drop it. And fortunately, you caught it, which, I didn't, the picture, it's a little juggly. It's a little juggly. I was
the best player in the NBA from here to here.
It's a little, if we want to, so, you know, in the NFL, there would be a little, yeah, does he have complete control of the football before it goes out of bounds? So anyhow, but it all worked, so it was fine. And then about 10 years ago, I was out coincidentally in Seattle with my family, and you brought my 3 boys down, and they each caught the fish, so maybe it wasn't that hard.
Pass it on. Now it's a generational thing. A campaign's got to be a human experience. It's fun. You can't just read papers and make speeches. You got to have interaction with people. Everything's a risk in life. So catch the fish. I dropped the fish. How could the campaign get any worse? I already lost to Iowa and New Hampshire, and things are not looking good on Super Tuesday. So if I drop the fish, let him, okay, I dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, he lost, not because he was a shitty candidate, because he dropped the fish in Washington.
I actually agree with that. That is like one of the things I learned.
By the way, I don't think I was a bad candidate.
No, fair enough. Actually, one of the things I learned is I think, especially running for president, like you have to take chances because it's so freaking hard to do.
Right.
Like you're not going to win. Start there. Not you, but anyone. No one is going to win. And so if you do things the way you've always done it, you're not going to win because 90% of the time you're not going to win anyhow. And you have to get calculated risk, I think. But I don't think enough people do.
Yeah, I think what happens is the consultants get a hold of them and put them into a narrow path.
Right.
And the public only primarily responds to the human element, who you are as a person, which you don't reveal if you're following a political path. You have to do a human path, and that means taking risks, trying to catch a fish in Pike Street Market, running into somebody on the street and listening to their story for 10 minutes. You know?
Right.
And so, to me, that's the joy of the presidential campaign, other than our friendship, is the people that I met along the road and the chance to see the country as a whole.
Right.
As someone once wrote, all of these things you are, and each is partly you, and none is false, and none is wholly true. And that's what America is. That's what every little bit of America, every person I met, I always had that in the back of my mind.
I had not seen America very, very much. I'd seen a lot of the East Coast and a little bit in California, but not much in the middle of the country. And Iowa and all those stops we made, you know, we spent a lot of time in Iowa, and that's a part of the country I'd never seen before. And then all the other, you know, you go around to Minnesota and the Wellstones and, you know,
yeah,
some of those places, they're out of the way places you've never been to before. And you're Midwestern, so it's not the same for you.
Well, that's true, but it is a great privilege to run for the office because I imagine embodying the country, and that's preposterous to say, right? But I wanted to understand what it was like to live in Idaho, or what it was like to live in Georgia, or what it was like to be a factory worker, or what it was like because I wanted to embody all of these things you are, and each is partly you. And none is false, and none is wholly true. And that was how I felt about the country and the people I would meet.
I mean, I do remember it. I mean, it was sort of inevitable at the end. We knew it was coming. The question was, you know, could you win Rhode Island? Could we win New York? Could we win a state or two? But the writing was on the wall. But you had all that money too. The problem was we had built up this war chest, assuming it was going to go through California through June, and so you couldn't give it back. You had to keep going for that last month or whatever. Certainly the last couple of weeks.
The point is that politics is a very human experience, as I've said any number of times, and our human experience is highs and lows, and understanding the richness of experience of each of those is ultimately the thing that is the most valuable that you can get out of any kind of experience. I mean, if you only can enjoy the highs, you don't enjoy the lows, but you experience the lows, and they make you feel differently as a human being and more whole as a human being, from my standpoint. So it's not like, it's a little bit like winning and losing in basketball. You win, you lose, you go on to another game. Except in politics, there's no other game, right? I mean, the other game is 4 years away, or 2 years, or 6 years, or whatever. So it has to be a feeling of what you did when you were there. And if you're a legislator, you got plenty of things you did.
Right.
I can say, look, that dam, it's down because of what I did. Is that tax reform? It's what I did. It's this Russian exchange program with Russian high school kids going to American schools with families and living with them. I did. So you can say you've done certain things, but the lows are inevitable. And when the lows come, I always thought, patience. Feel it, feel the hurt, have patience, because you know life's going to bring it back up. And that's the circle of life. And it is true, there are highs, if you're lucky. There are also lows that are inevitable. They happen in the campaign, and you were there for the highs when we were expecting things to go well, and the lows. And it's very important that, I think it's very important for a politician to be able to feel that himself or herself. And the idea of blaming somebody else for that, ultimately you're the only one. And that's the loneliness of the job.
Right.
You're the one who's there.
Right.
It's not a great staff. It's not the people. It's not the opponents. You. And you're standing alone. You're exposed. And sometimes you win. Sometimes you lose. And both of those you have to understand is part of what life is. And, after having a basketball career, a political career like that, actually it's helped me a lot in life. Because when there are moments when you get down, I don't get down all the way, because I know I'm waiting for them to come back up.
Right.
And inevitably it is. Sometimes it's music, like the song by Van Morrison. Wonders all around us, never far away, right before your eyes, every single day. Look at lovers walking hand in hand, sound of music from a big band, antique market in the village square, pretty waitress with the long blonde hair.
So I'm going to come back.
You find something every day, takes your breath away. World is full of wonders, no matter what they say. You don't have to look for mountains, let your spirit rise. Wide oceans or deep valleys, or eagles flying by, wonders all around us, and life is all you got. If you look for mountains, man, you're going to miss a lot. A philosophy.
You good? We got enough?
Well, it's one of the great joys in life to have had you with me on that journey. We didn't know each other, and yet we became very close. And I always think of you, as I've told you, as a kind of son. So I have my daughter, and I have my son. And there's no bigger thing I can say to you about how I feel about you.
Thank you. It was a great experience.
You can't top that.
No, fair. I was thinking about when I first met you, or whatever, I first started working for you. I was thinking about this afterwards when the interview. So I came down and interviewed with all the staff, but the real interview was Rick Wright at a New Jersey diner, which I didn't know at the time. But he said, "Come on out, we're going to dinner." And so I don't know how long, it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I realized halfway through, oh boy, this is actually the interview. And then when I got to meet you, we were getting on the road, which was really when it sort of connected, and just the common around. So I had a great experience, and we saw a lot of the country. We didn't see enough of New Hampshire, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just glad I got the chance to do it and to meet, all your family.
I'm glad we have this to remember it by.
Yeah.